Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane HD video blog for the 22nd of October 2012. Here is Tropical Depression number 18, if you can believe that, and it'll be our next named storm too. Tropical Storm Sandy is not too far away from this system down here. Been talking about this area being favorable this time of year. Climatologically speaking, the setup was there, and the Madden-Julian Oscillation coming into the region, adding a favorable upper level pattern, enhancing the convection down in the tropics, and here it is. Now we have TD18 situated just to the east of 80 degrees longitude here to the south of Jamaica. This is forecast to head up towards Jamaica through eastern Cuba into the Bahamas and then somewhere in a path around this area by day 5. Lots of interesting things can happen with this beyond day 5, which we'll have to take a look at here throughout the rest of the presentation. So the official forecast, as I just pointed out, coming up across Jamaica, then eastern Cuba, through the southeast Bahamas. There's Bermuda right there. Now the GFS, just to kind of set the stage here, the GFS model, the American model, wants to take this on out near Bermuda and head it out to sea, no problem at all. The non-American based models, the Canadian and the Euro, have a very similar solution through day 5, and then they kind of bring it back, try to get it out again, and then bring it back in again, phasing with this trough that comes in off the towards the east coast, creating this enormous storm for the mid-Atlantic states. And that's what I'm going to go through and show you, comparing the GFS with the Euro. Lots of heat content for this to take advantage of where it is now. Very, very warm water even on the north side of the Antilles Islands here, through the Bahamas. And then even outside of that area, we still have this sort of skirt, if you will, of substantial heat content at the lower end of the scale, but nonetheless it's there in the 80s, the water temperature in the very low 80s, and that's plenty warm for this to take advantage of. So let's look at the GFS. This is the 12Z run from today. Here's our system down in the Caribbean. There's Jamaica, there's eastern Cuba, here is Hispaniola. Notice we have a big high sitting up over the southeast, beautiful fall weather, in our low pressure area in the Caribbean. 48 hours out, this will be valid Wednesday morning. We see it very close to Jamaica here. Strong high pressure sitting over the Carolinas, and a pretty stiff easterly wind coming into Florida as a result of the pressure gradient. The difference between this high pressure here and the low pressure developing with what would be Tropical Storm Sandy, bringing heavy rain into eastern Cuba, Jamaica, tropical storm conditions there, the Bahamas. Big problems with this heavy rain event because it's such a slow mover. At day 3, it's over the north side of the eastern part of Cuba in the southeast Bahamas. Strong winds with it, very heavy rain. And then we have that pressure gradient coming in because we do have all that higher pressure at the surface sitting over the northwest Atlantic and the northern United States, the northeast part of the country, and that tight squeeze play of the air will in and of itself bring some rough surf to Florida at the very least. Finally, out at day 4, really starting to ramp up. It'll be a question, I think, of how tropical will this be at this point, as there is some upper level energy sitting down across the region that this may tap into and start to transition from a tropical system, which is more tightly wound up in a warmer center, to a subtropical system which has a larger wind field and the energy is spread out over a larger area. It's interesting too that the GFS wants to take some energy out on the northeast flank and develop it sort of separately. And if we go to day 5, I zoom in the resolution a little bit. Here it is. There's the Bahamas right there. Here's the east coast of Florida and the system well to the east of that area, but there's that additional piece of energy that breaks off. And I just don't think that's realistic. I don't know what that is, why it does that. Maybe some convective feedback issues with the model. It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it'll happen, but I don't know why it would happen. This should stay pretty consolidated in here. The Euro and the Canadian both have it in this general vicinity at day 5, so they're not too different at that time frame. It's what happens after day 5 where we have a huge difference in the model. So if we go to day 6, we see what's going on here. There's Bermuda, and this starts to pull away, clearly not towards the United States. And that goes through to day 7. Well, I don't have day 7 in there, but trust me, it does continue to move off. In fact, I'll draw it for you. At day 7, it fades even harder to the northeast here, maybe east-northeast, past Bermuda, which is right there, and it ends up over here near 60 degrees of longitude on its way out to sea. Now let's compare that to what goes on with the Euro, the ECMWF model, a very highly regarded global model that usually performs very well. So its 72-hour position is right over Jamaica, and when this is run last night, this would be where the GFS shows it in 48 hours, if that makes sense. So basically what I'm saying is the GFS and the Euro both show it near Jamaica, and they agree with that. Okay, so pretty good model agreement there. At day 4, both the GFS and the Euro have it on the north side of Cuba and the Bahamas. Really good agreement there between the models. At day 5, the Euro takes it more to the north at day 5, whereas the GFS is a little bit more to the northeast, but they're still pretty close to each other. But here at day 6, watch what happens. Instead of moving off to the northeast this way, check out what it does. There's the center now, and watch what happens at day 6. It moves to the west. High pressure builds in out here as a huge ocean storm comes in over the central northern Atlantic, and this just cannot go on out and join that. It doesn't work that way. At least that's what the model is showing. So it comes back to the northwest a little bit, not far off the coast of Florida. Very strong winds aloft. This is the 5,000-foot wind field, and we're looking at near hurricane force winds almost a mile up, and very strong northeast winds at the surface, probably 30 to 35 miles per hour, with some pretty strong rain bands. Then at day 6, check that out. This is day 7, a week out. It's sitting there just to the southeast of Cape Hatteras, trying to go on out to sea, but it gets trapped at days 8 and 9. It gets pulled into the mid-Atlantic states here as an enormous ocean storm. And you can see there's another one sitting out here over the Atlantic. You just can't have both of these out there occupying the same space. That's what the model is trying to show. The Environment Canada model also shows this scenario where what would be Sandy comes up through the Antilles, the Bahamas, comes in towards the U.S. a little bit, tries to escape, but then gets pulled in at the last minute as this trough digs down in and phases it in with it. It just entrains the energy and becomes this hybrid sort of mix between a hurricane and a nor'easter. It's going to be an interesting week ahead for sure, with the first impacts being in the Caribbean. Don't want to discount that at all. The heavy rain event down there going to be a big problem in and of itself. Then we have to wait and see if do we get this big hybrid sort of transitional monster right near Halloween. And I don't mean to make that pun lightly. This has the potential to be a historic storm event if it comes to pass, and we'll take a look at that each day to see what happens. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, my website. Always a pleasure and a privilege to produce these videos for you on Hurricane and Hurricane HD, a couple of the finest apps that you can find for tracking tropical cyclones. And I will be back with another video blog for you tomorrow.